Hello everyone, this is Shintai. I'm sure all of you know about this game I've been talking about called Katawa Shoujo. Well, I finagled one of the writers to talk to me today. Hello, my friend, how are you doing?
I'm good. I got a bit of a cough, but that's okay, I think.
That sucks. Why don't you introduce yourself, say who you are, what you are to the project, Katawa Shoujo, and just get everyone acquainted.
Sure thing. My name's Corporal Crud. I was the original producer / director, whatever they originally called me for the game. I also wrote the bulk of the Hanako path until I unfortunately had to separate from the project a couple of years ago, in which case Suriko took over in both roles, the producer, and he cleaned up a lot of the Hanako path for me, which was really great of him. So that's me. That's what I did.
Very cool. Very cool. A lot of people, they're not really sure about the project. They don't really know what it is and you know how it started. I'd appreciate if you just, really quick, just nothing too in-depth, but a quick synopsis of kind of like the history and how it started. I think that'd be good.
Yeah, okay. Well, the first original idea came from, it was a back page of one of the books from Katawa Shoujo circle group, and he just sort of put a sketch in the back of one of his comics. It's had the 5 girls in it, and said, "Oh, it'd be really great if someone made this game." And that was about 2000, 2001. That disappeared and then sort of reappeared back on the net in about 2005, 2006, and it ended up being a sticky on A. A few people got excited about it and started their own little forums, at which point everyone's kind of got together and started coming up with ideas, and from that 4LS was born, 4LS Studios, and we took that through and made the game that you guys have been playing. So yeah, that's the 5-second tour.
That's incredible. That is one little snippet that exploded into this project. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. I mean, it seemed to go through about a million different sets of hands. Of course, you've got the people that originally found it in the back page, and then some people coloured it, and some people kept on posting it and saying, "Hey, let's do this and let's get excited about it." So yeah, by the time it got to our world, it had already changed hands a few thousand times, I'd imagine.
Okay, well that brings me to my next question: is how did you become a part of this? How did you assimilate yourself to this project of sorts?
It's pretty funny actually, because at the time I was running a fan sub group, We Are in Denial. We did the Hirashi series and a couple of other series that weren't so great. But one of our QCers, a guy by the name of Miyaoshi, he actually posted it in our staff forum and said, "Hey, you guys should check this out." So we logged onto the dev forums, and I kind of had a look, and this is the original dev forums, not the ones that we're using now, obviously. And I had a look around, and I started having some kooky ideas, and I thought it would actually be a lot funnier project than it turned out being. And at the time I was into music production, so I said, "Oh, hey, look, guys, how about I jump on board? I'll help you do a bit of music production, clean up the audio, all that type of stuff." And it wasn't really serious. But at the time, the original group of people that moved it from 4chan onto the forums, the Envision forums, weren't really all that organised. And because I'd just come from this, was still part of the fan sub group and running this fan sub group, I kind of stuck my hand up and said, "Hey guys, do you want a hand pulling this together? I obviously run a relatively large fan group. That fan sub group, let me show you how it's done." And so they said, "Yeah, okay." And so we started pulling it together, and then all of a sudden the original sort of core team, they used to call themselves, pretty much imploded. And I just got this PM one day saying, "Hey, you know what? It's yours. Do what you got to do."
Nice.
And that's how it ended up in my lap.
Very cool, very cool. And you were the one that wrote the Hanako route, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You mentioned before about the little snippet at the end made by Raita. I remember reading that, and it said something about, for Hanako, when the main character would confess her, that she would start crying because she'd be like, "Oh, why would you want to, why would you like me because I look like this, whatever." But spoiler alert, not much of a big spoiler, that doesn't actually happen in the game. Is this something that you wanted to be in the game originally, but it didn't work? Or did you immediately think this didn't work and you wanted to do something different?
There's a whole discussion there about which parts of that in particular image we decided were canon and which parts we didn't. To be honest, I don't think that... Actually, it did show up. In one of the earlier drafts it did show up, but that entire draft was basically scrapped. And it just turned out that the characterization just didn't work for me. And so when we got to the second, third, and the fourth drafts, it just made more sense for her not to kind of burst out in tears and do this whole, "Oh, why do you like me? I'm such an ugly person." Because in reality, it was still kind of hooking her back to her disability, as opposed to sort of saying, "Okay, that's part of a greater person," if you get what I mean there, as opposed to sort of focusing entirely on her being, scarred. And then it also turned out when we were in discussions about sort of saying, oh, obviously this is a school for disabled kids, everyone's got to have their own disability, without sort of being too harsh about it. Being scarred isn't that much of a physical disability, and the problem with Hanako was more about her personality and how that affected her. So, her being, quote unquote ugly wasn't such a big problem, so that's why that kind of slipped out of the final text.
I thought that Hanako's character was an interesting one especially because of the route kind of frowned upon white knighting, that white knight complex. I think that makes it interesting because she's a much stronger character than you would initially think, given her the way she acts. So I think I actually agree with you. I think it was better to not have her burst in tears because the main character confessed or whatever.
Yeah, it did just feel so much out of place that we kind of got that. I think it was only in the first draft that we ever had her kind of, bawling. But that was more tears of happiness as well. It wasn't that whole kind of, oh, I'm so ugly, piss off, you don't actually love me type of thing.
Actually, I think that would have been better than because I'm so ugly kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think that's where that one went to.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Besides the Hanako route, of the other routes, which one is your favorite?
It's a bit tough. For a long time, I'd say the Rin one, but the Rin path, it pisses me off in equal parts as much as I like it.
I can... yes!
But then again, I followed it through the drafts. The original sort of drafts, I think draft 2 or 3 for that path it just really irked me to the point where you just wanted to stop reading. But I think the current version's good. I also think that the Lily path, what Suruko did with the Lily path, just had so much more heart to it than the other ones. So yeah, in terms of something that I can really connect to, the Rin path I think is well written, whereas the Lily path is kind of the one that creates the most emotional response, if that makes sense.
Oh no, I totally agree. I actually kind of thought of Rin's path as a bit of an emotional roller coaster of sorts, because it keeps going up and down. Because there are times when things are going good with Rin, and then Rin tries to push Hisao away, and then Hisao gets angry at her. There's a lot of varied emotions in it. And compared to the Lily path, though, I think it was more of a wholesome kind of thing. Yeah,
I think you're right there. Yeah, the Lily path isn't exactly I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's not a challenging read insofar as the Rin path is. The Rin path, it challenges you to read it, and you're taken along for a really exhausting ride almost.
Rin's character was very unique because she didn't even understand herself very much. I think that lended the route to be written in a very unique way as well because of her character.
Yeah, and I can't really speak for Aura on this one, but I do know that sometimes it's kind of hard to write the character as you think they should be written, and I wonder if that's in play on it, because I know that there was a lot of times where I got sick of just writing an ellipsis or writing a stutter into a line and just going, oh, God damn it, woman, just speak properly. So I wonder if, this is obviously a question for Aura, I wonder if he felt a bit of that and whether that impacted on what he actually did with the character and where he took the path.
Here's something I wanted to know. What was kind of your inspiration? Some general inspirations kind of inspired to while you were writing the Hanako route? What were the things that you thought of when you were writing it that helped you along as you were doing it?
The original path, which I'm trying to think of an appropriate word to put in there, but thankfully you guys will never actually read. The original path was heavily influenced by Higurashi.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but to be honest, I saw the first 12 episodes of Higurashi, and that shit creeped me out. Creeped me the fuck out, and I couldn't finish it.
I watched the first 8 episodes in a marathon, back to back. I showed up, I found the Win Fan Subs channel, lobbed on the door and said, I'm helping, you've got no choice. And it turned out within about 5 episodes, I think I was then running the group because I was just so energized by it, and I loved the story.
That's my problem. I'm really interested in it, but at the same time, I'm a scaredy cat, so when I try to read it, I'm just fuck this shit. Well,
I'll tell you what, watch it all or do something like that, and then go to there's a town in Gifu Prefecture called Shirakawa-go, which is where it's based on, and that is creepy.
Okay.
Yeah, stay in there for a night. It's fantastic. But anyway, so that was the first part that was heavily influenced by that. When I finished it, I thought it was good, and then when I read it again, it's wow, that was just me trying to fit elements into there that I wanted to see, but it just didn't work. So I started reading again, Life of Pi was obviously one book that I was reading at the time, but I was reading a lot of Murakami, like Dance, 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 and Norwegian Wood, and those type of books at that time.
I have a friend who's really into that. It's been bugging me to read that too.
Well, I just finished Kafka on the Shore, actually, and I'm a big fan of that. I'm about to start 1Q84, which is, of course, is the latest one, which has just been translated, so I'm going to be reading into that. But yeah, that kind of refocused me a bit in terms of characterization, and the other thing that helped me, of course, was the rest of the team, because in terms of a resource, none of us were really that good at sort of our individual crafts when we started, but by continually getting feedback from everyone else and getting that kind of kick up the bum from everyone else as well, it really was able to refine things, point to different references and say, oh, look, this is how this person or this writer or this artist or this VN or this series or this manga or whatever does this and handles this, and this is how we should probably start doing it, and that's how you should start doing it. Yeah, so the team, I suppose, would probably be the biggest inspiration, the biggest thing that kept us going. In fact, that was the post I was just writing when you called me up. I think I said something similar there.
Very cool. Inspiration from the team. Teamwork. That's good. You mentioned VNs as part of your inspiration. Can you cite any visual novels that you read that really kind of affected you in a way?
To be honest, I wasn't really ever that much into VNs. I read Nakisu, of course. I think everyone kind of has to do that. I had a look at a couple of other ones, but I never really got into them to the extent that some of the other guys did. But of course, they were always able to bring up the examples from the other ones, and that's what made it easy. I know that Quartet is one that Suriko especially really liked and used that as a lot of inspiration. Yeah, I'd say probably if I had to recommend to someone else, just given the small snippets that I've seen, Quartet is probably the one I'd someone to.
You know, for some reason, I always kind of got it in my head that it was kind of mandatory. Everyone had to play Fate Stay Night before writing a VN, since that's like the most popular one.
I actually thought about it, and I downloaded it, and I sort of opened it up, and then I sort of had a look at myself and said, do you really want to put this investment into something you basically know the story of? You know, the number of spoilers that I'd read, and the number of, you know, and of course everyone's seen the anime, so
that sucks.
You know, when there's so many other things out there, and to me, picking up a book like Dance, Dance, Dance at the time and reading through that would actually be, you know, it's a new story, it's a new author. That was more relevant to me than reading through something like Fate Stay Night.
That sucks to hear, though. I'm very adamant against spoilers, so that really sucks to hear. Especially since I actually did enjoy Fate Stay Night. I actually thought Tsukihime was a bit better, although I'm sure some people have me at the stake for that.
Look, that's what opinions are all about. I mean, you have to go and have a look at any of the comments on that. You know, obviously our board is pretty tame, but if you go to a slightly more open board, or just even read some of the flames that we get, it's opinions are always like that. You'll get people that love and people that hate, whatever, so just go with it.
I'm not much of a forum goer for the most part, but to say I do like the Katawa Shoujo forums because they seem pretty lax compared to other forums. I agree. I think your forums are, you know, pretty chill.
I think that probably also comes from it's a very chilled utopia, but it's behind a very solid iron curtain. You know, if you break the rules, well, at least back when we were able to moderate the forums, now it's kind of exploded, but if you broke the rules, there was very swift retribution, very swift, you know, lockings and bannings and such.
Do you like to play other kinds of video games, or is it mostly anime? A little insight in your taste.
I'm a big FPS guy, but I just haven't had the chance to play much recently. I think that the last kind of games I was playing was Team Fortress 2 when that came out originally, before they started putting in all those extra pick-up things, whatever it is you get now. So yeah, that kind of dates when I stopped having the time to play FPSs. Those and a bit of top-down strategy as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
When you say top-down, do you mean like the Skya type of thing, or do you mean like RTS, like StarCraft?
RTS type stuff, yeah. Not so much StarCraft. I could never really get into that, but yeah, you know, your generals or that type of stuff. 7th Legion as well. And in terms of all favourite games, 7th Legion, that's got to be up there.
I'm not much of a PC gamer, so I never really got a chance to play many RTSs, but I may give that one a shot. Why not?
I'll give it a shot. It was a very strange one. It was one of the first one of those RTS type games that started using the spell card kind of concept, which was really cool. And promotions. It was the first one to do promotions, as far as I know.
Now that the game is done, I think Four Leaf Studios pretty much said that they don't have any plans right now. I guess my question right now is, what do you think would have to come about for you guys to really like get inspired and be like, yeah, we can do another game and it's going to be about this?
It's a hard one because I think each one of us in our own special way is a little bit jaded. I mean, we've all made heaps of friends, and I do love jumping on the forums and or on IRC and having a chat to everyone, but to find something that would actually inspire us again, Okay, let me go back a step. Before, when we first started this, it was more kind of, it was very fluid. We didn't know where we were going. We're all very naive. To break through that naivety, now that, and to be on the other side now, we can look back and say, well, you know what, we wouldn't start it again. I can't really think of anything that would inspire me, this instant, to actually sort of sit down and start all over again, start from scratch and say, right, okay, here we are, we're back on stage one, in such a huge manner. In a smaller manner, yeah, like if, one of the artists or, one of the writers came up to me and said, hey, let's do this, I might consider it. I think all of us have kind of got our own things to do now, and while some of us will probably still stick with doing VNs and a kind of casual thing, I don't think it'll be anything at this scale, just because we've got to try and find something to get over that activation energy, because we know what we're in for now this time, if that makes any kind of sense.
No, I think I do. I mean, this project took like 5 years to complete, didn't it?
Yeah, it took 5 years and claimed a lot of scalps on the way, so.
I'm sure just you as a person throughout that time has changed. So I'm sure that your perception, I'm sure you were a little more misty-eyed in the beginning, and by the end of it, you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now that the game has been released, though, how is the reception? I know that in the forums it's mostly positive, but how are you taking? Are you happy with how people are taking the game?
The response, as far as I can tell, it's still pretty much positive. You get the occasional naysayer sort of that just looks at the concept and throws it out straight away, and those people I don't really sort of count. You get a lot of people that kind of will say, oh, the stories are too short or they're too basic or anything else, and it's like, well, you know what, stuff you. But there's so much positive feedback out there that it's kind of, oh, you know what, that's great, it feels good. So in terms of feedback, the feedback's been pretty good, I think, and I'm happy with it.
Oh, that's great to hear. Now, I heard that even though this game hasn't even been fucking translated in Japanese, the Japanese are already naysaying the game just because of the name. Is that what you were alluding to before, as well as other people are just like, oh, this is fat material?
You get a lot of people that were doing that, but the Japanese reaction, I suppose, is pretty typical. When Act 1 came out, it was pretty much exactly the same, and then it went quiet whilst the translation effort went on, and then of course when the translation effort finished, it came out and it was like, oh wow, this is actually great because they can read what's going on. If you can imagine for a moment opening up Fate Stay Night in Japanese without knowing a word of Japanese and clicking through it for 15 minutes and going, you know what, I'm not actually seeing anything of interest here, of course you're going to get pissed off at it. So it's the same for them. But yeah, once it was I'm sure once it finally gets translated in probably another 3 or 4 years, they'll turn around and go, wow, actually that was pretty good, probably with the same proportion as the English speaking audience.
I mean, I've never understood people that criticize something when they don't have a full understanding of it. It's pretty absurd. When you had the artists draw for a different path, was it one artist for each path, or was it kind of like a conjoined effort between all the artists doing all the paths equally?
When it started off, it was one artist per path, so it was one artist and one writer per path, and we kind of started that so that each path would have its own flavour and we wouldn't be trying to cross-contaminate each other too much, which would just be a hell for editing. But the workload of the artists, they started to sort of share it amongst themselves. So you'd have one kind of main artist, but then one would end up doing the line art and the other one would do the colouring. And by the end, I think everyone was just kind of working on everything. Yeah, there was the intention to have one artist per path, but then it just kind of merged into the artist congregation.
Oh, cool. Because I did notice when I was playing through the games that there would be certain scenes within the same routes that looked like they were drawn by completely different people.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing to remember is that some of that art is actually quite old compared to the newer stuff. There was also, because obviously creating a CG takes a lot of effort in some instances. I know that even though the draft had changed, we'd sort of go back and we'd change it so that the writing would fit the art, as opposed to writing the scene out and then having the artist read it and then write the thing. So given that kind of time shift and given the amount of skill, I mean, if you look up Wee's blog and her DeviantArt and check the difference between when she first started and when she finished, it kind of makes complete sense that much of a change, because it's quite easy to edit words, but it's not so easy to edit an artwork.
I guess my final question is, do you feel that all the hard work that you've done for the project, do you feel that it's been worth it? Are you completely content with how everything's turned out? Yeah,
I'd say I would. I mean, I do feel pretty bad in actually leaving the project as early as I did and not seeing it through to 100%. But I do feel, and especially now sort of playing the final product and looking back on it, and then also going through all the other bits of scraps and forum posts and everything else, you kind of go, wow, you know what, it feels good, because here's something that we were writing for years, and now it's sort of come out, and it just feels like a fully professional product. And to watch something go from that initial genesis all the way through to the end is just, it just feels good. So yeah, I'm pretty happy in the way it's come out.
If I can just say for a minute, I think this turned out better than some actual professional products. Honestly, I think it turned out really well.
No, that's the love. Yeah, there's a lot of love in this project.
Well, man, I gotta say thank you very much for coming onto this interview. Everyone, check out Katawa Shoujo. You should be able to find the links down below and download it and enjoy it. Again, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. No, just make sure you get the other guys on here as well.
I'll do my best.
Cool.
All right. Peace out.
Peace. Bye.